Well, hello everybody, and welcome to the Craig and Jane Show. And today we've got a guest with us. We have Simon Waters from Waters & Co. Funeral Directors, and based in Southampton and also in Portsmouth. And we're going to be talking about death, about and Simon's also been involved in spiritualism and very interested in leadership and life after death. So we're going to talk about some of the behind-the-scenes things that happen with this type of industry and stories and things like that.
Yeah, but first of all, we're going to say hello to everybody. So if you'd like to come on and join us, and I'm sure you're going to have a super evening. Halfway through the show, we're going to also talk to Simon's young son, David. And so if there's anything you want to ask them, I'm sure you'll find it very interesting.
Yeah, we're entering a world that most of us don't know anything much about, but it's day to day for the two guests tonight. So I think it'll be interesting.
Your mic, Craig.
I think you'll find it interesting.
Right. First of all, we have David. Hello from West Broomfield, Michigan. Hi, David.
Justine Farley. Hello, Craig and Jane from San Jose, California, Silicon Valley. I absolutely love you too. Blessings to you always. That's
Yes,
kind
and
of you.
we love us too, don't we, Craig?
Agility Bits, hello from windy Cornwall. It's better not blow the bunting down. Yes, because you're all out doing the Queen at the moment. That might be a funeral we'll have soon, perhaps. Jamie Baby Cardo, hi Craig, Jane, and Domenico. So it sounds like my mic's working.
From Canada, you were right. Doug Ford won the election.
Yes, thank you, Vera. It's one of our patrons, I can tell. Thank you, Vera.
CB, what's it say, Craig?
Hey
ho!
So as you're coming on live, we're just going to be saying hello to everybody as you come on, just allow you all to get online. And we'll be talking today to Simon, who's a funeral director, and we'll be looking at all the behind-the-scenes stuff, what happens in a funeral, and talk about life after death, and particularly like from a standpoint of someone that's interested in spiritualism and life after death. Says Dean, hi from Connecticut.
And Peter T, hi from Dartmoor. Hi, Peter T.
You didn't get out then, Peter.
God, you're dreadful.
Shez is saying, hi, Craig and Jane and Simon. Do you have any spooky stories, Simon? Thanks. Well, maybe Simon might have. That's a sort of interesting sort of question we could ask. But any thoughts you have? You'll find out some more as we move along.
Joanne says, hope you enjoy the celebrations this week. Well, we've been working this week, so we haven't had a chance, have we?
Well, we have done quite a bit.
Oh, we did go to Harry Potter's studio yesterday.
Yeah, and we're going to have a firework display after this tonight. Vladimir Putin. Oh, well, I'm glad you made it. I sent you the invite. Hi from Kremlin, Russia.
Pushka to you in Russian.
See, I knew we had some
Pushka.
The Nadi said to me the other day, you'll have politicians follow your channel.
Right, Janet says, hi to you. All love watching you. Thank you, Janet.
Perhaps that's what the Nadi meant.
Now, Steve, hi from Kathy and myself. Happy Bank Holiday, Queen's Jubilee. Happy Bank Holiday to you, Steve.
I think Steve's local to us, I think.
Southampton.
Yeah. So if you're around Southampton, this will be particularly interesting to you.
Right, and then we've got E.T., hello from Estonia. We've been to Estonia, haven't we?
Yeah, what's it called? Tanin, something, Tannin.
That's it,
Tannin.
you've got it.
Not Tamil.
Right, so...
It looks like we've had our hellos.
Yeah.
So, do you want to start off, Jane?
Yeah.
'Cause you know
Now, Simon, tell us, you're very compassionate and a wonderful funeral director. So tell us what your experience, and we were talking earlier that people in the UK cannot accept or talk about death. What's your experience?
My experience is that people do find it extremely difficult to actually come in and actually talk about death.
Yes, and you've been a funeral director mostly for life, have you, Simon?
About 20 years now.
How did you get into that then? Was it in the family? Or?
Well, it's something that stuck in the back of my mind. My uncle used to work for funeral directors And I can remember them doing it when I was about 7 or 8.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's something that's just stuck there, and I love what I do and I enjoy it.
Yeah, you enjoy the job. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, you must have to deal with an awful lot of suffering, though. I mean, must be so much suffering from the people that you encounter.
Yeah, obviously we've seen an awful lot of people very distressed because we've gone through a very, very hard, distressing time, really. Families have not been able to get together and meet up and actually attend through some of the services. It's all done by webcast.
Yeah, this is all the COVID stuff.
This is all the COVID, and obviously the numbers have actually been reduced an awful amount, but it's very upsetting because you can't see those people being able to grieve properly and say goodbye to their loved ones, and it's been a horrendous time, really. And you know, me and my son had to do a service where the lady did it webcast, nobody could attend, and she had to stand there and actually do the service, and that was very, very all alone.
God, that's awful. And I suppose that people must have, you had a lot of people, I suppose. I mean, it's difficult for us, I think most people, to grasp the scale of what was happening with COVID, really, because I mean, you must have been tremendously busy during that
Yeah,
time.
we were very busy. But when people come in and they've come in to arrange through to us, it's very difficult because they haven't been able to say goodbye to that physical body.
Yeah.
They haven't even been able to hold their hand, and it's been awful.
Yeah, it must have been terrible time, because part of the work, part of the funeral, I think, is it's part of the grieving process. It's the finality of it, isn't it? When you go to a funeral, and afterwards, it's almost a lift of everybody's energy lifts after the great thing. Oh, thank goodness it's over, and people move on. It's like a turning point, really, isn't it? And you don't get that with a virtual.
I mean, obviously, moving on from COVID a little bit, but we've recently have just started taking memorial services, which that does help to a point, because they can actually get together and say goodbye.
Yeah. People can get together now, can they,
Nice,
properly? How do you feel about all this stuff going on in Parliament, where they were all boozing it up during the COVID period? I mean, from what you saw of the people that you were having to deal with, how did you feel when you saw that on the TV?
It was quite upsetting to the fact that when you see and hear about them having a party, and you're seeing actually people that couldn't go in there just to say goodbye and hold their hand, that is the most heartbreaking, to sit there and have to arrange with families. It's hard at the best of time, but obviously to sit there and visualise that is heartbreaking.
Explain to people also, because you and your son are working 24/7, and lots of people think, oh, you must be raking it in, and that's not true, is it?
We're not out to make money, we're out to help people. But obviously it did annoy me when a lot of people, when you hear it in the media, oh, they must be raking it in. But we're not raking it in, because there's a lot of service that we provide that we couldn't, We had, take for example, limousines, we couldn't supply a limousine because they weren't allowed to travel. and you know, after a while, it was that you could, but you had to have screens up. They had to wear face masks. But a lot of people weren't having limousines because obviously there was no venues open. So not only the fact that they weren't having a proper service where people couldn't get there because you couldn't travel, you could only have, I think at one stage, it was 10 mourners.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it must have been terrible, because part of your job, I suppose, must be partly like being a bit of a counsellor for people. Don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, 'cause, I mean, people come with terrible grief and scared to talk about death. First time they've ever spoken about death, I suppose.
And what's good about Simon, he really cares about people, and he tries to put himself in people's shoes, which I
I mean,
think
you
is
ever had
wonderful.
any sort of conflicts at a funeral? Because I know sometimes people, one of the first reactions to grief is often anger,
Yeah.
disbelief, and then so often turns to anger. I mean,
I have witnessed it, and I just think just for 5 minutes, you know, get together, and it's more awkward round a graveside
yeah,
because they just separate.
yeah. And you're stuck in the middle, I presumably trying to keep
bring them together
No.
because
Yeah.
they just don't want to do that.
And tell us, Simon, have you had any psychic phenomena experiences yourself when you know you actually got somebody in the coffin, and so you're standing there? Do you actually sense or feel anything?
I've had a chap who was quite young, and at the service they were having a photograph to one side, and we always put people in our chapel of rest at night because we feel it's the right thing that they have their last night in our chapel of rest. And this specific time there was a photograph of this gentleman. We set them all up in there with
That's odd. All the mics should go.
It's funny, isn't that?
It's working.
Working.
We were talking about those strange phenomena.
And then suddenly,
And
oh
now we've
look,
got
the screen's
oddities
gone
on
funny.
the screen and oddities.
Somebody's about.
Mine's not working.
No,
What on earth?
mine. Yeah, the camera's
Camera's
going
gone
strange.
crazy. Mic working.
No, we'll go back. to
Hopefully
the
you can hear me now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
So well, when people die, there's often all sorts of weird
yeah, let's Simon.
things happening, like it's happening now, actually.
So the photographs were actually on the floor, and there was nobody there. So, do you think that person just wanted to let you know that they were still hanging around on the earth plane?
yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you get things like clocks stop at the time of a death. You get people talk about butterflies landing on coffins, dragonflies coming into the room and things like that. You had any unusual sort of things that seem you can't quite explain? Because I know people often get this.
Like, for example, when you've got the coffin there in the chapel, and you might look down to the door and you take the service, wouldn't it be wonderful you actually saw that person by that doorway? Have you ever experienced that?
I've seen shadows or
Yeah,
an
well,
outline
that's
of
good.
people there. One of the things that has happened that you'll get white feathers.
Oh, that's marvellous.
You know, you'll open the back of the hearse up, obviously, to take that person out and take him into the chapel. And there's been a white feather
In
the hearse.
In the hearse.
Yeah,
Crikey.
that's
that's
happened a
lovely.
couple of times.
That's
I mean, how do you
phenomenal,
explain
isn't it?
that?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that is pretty odd.
Well-
And ever had like mobile phones or sometimes people sometimes get buried with their mobile phones.
Yeah, I had a lady once who her daughter came in to arrange her mother's funeral, and she said that could her mum be buried with a mobile phone, and I said yeah. She invited me back to the wake afterwards, but she said that her mum, wherever she went, it was always sunny and hot, and on this specific day, it absolutely tipped down with rain. So I asked the daughter if I could have her mum's mobile number. She asked me, looked at me a bit strange, and she said, I said, I'm going to give her a call and speak to her about the weather conditions.
That's good. Right, now Peter T, can you repeat the story of the photograph of the young chap? Because that's when
He missed it. Did we lose some of it?
Well, we lost some of it, and the picture went all strange, didn't it?
Okay, well, we can summarise.
You were telling us just before that about the story, Simon, of the photographs on top of the coffin, and you left those photographs top of the coffin out of respect for the person their last night on earth, and what happened the next day.
Well, when I went in, it was on the floor broken.
Gosh,
So I couldn't tell the family that. I had to go out and get another frame.
gosh. Oh, that's a nice thing to do. Do any of you out there want to ask Simon anything?
Can you ask Simon, do you ever feel the spirit still around in the funeral, or do you feel nothing?
That's a difficult one. I do sometimes feel that there is something around, but I'm not sure what it is.
Because you kind of got to know Jane
Through
originally.
spiritualist church, didn't you? I mean, you go to spiritualist church,
Well,
and obviously,
When Simon was about 18, I think.
yeah, and you get kind of, obviously in spiritualist church you get messages. Have you ever had any interesting messages, sort of like from people that you might have buried, perhaps, or people
Your customers, he means.
from the customers?
Your customers.
No, not yet. No, I haven't. I've not experienced anything, but
No.
you never know.
Yeah,
One
'cause I
day it
remember
might
being a
happen.
celebrant at
They'll
a
all be
funeral.
queuing up tonight to give you a message.
I remember being a celebrant at a funeral, and and someone came for me for a reading, and I didn't realise I was given the message, and he kept on about you were there, you know, and she said yes you were, you were the celebrant at his funeral, and
well,
I
that's
didn't know
good.
it, and that to me was really
Right.
strange.
Now Vera says, right, my ex-sister-in-law told me her father turned off the lights at his funeral so she would know he could see her. Has this happened to your funeral home, Simon?
So what's she saying?
Well, she's meaning, you know, sometimes the spirit will
In the dark, you see.
turn the lights on and off, or you have phenomena. She's wondering, in your funeral home,
Oh, I see. Do you ever
Did
get
the
strange?
lights
Well, we
go
just had all that strange business with the sound and everything here.
Well,
didn't we?
doing
Do
it
you ever
then.
get anything that go kind of like electrically wrong and things like that? With things like the type of thing that might sometimes happen?
but Simon hasn't got a spirit meter in his funeral.
No, can't say anything's really happened like that.
You've got to tell the truth.
What's the most unusual funeral you've ever done?
Unusual. I would say the most unusual is obviously what do you call it? The Trotters,
Oh, Del Boy.
Del Boy.
Boy.
Yeah, the three-wheeler. That is the most unusual. Yeah.
About that.
Well,
Now this sounds
I
interesting.
wouldn't mention any names,
No.
obviously,
no,
but
obviously.
and I
Bleep,
won't,
No, don't mention it.
I won't say where it was,
No.
but obviously, we had to pick this family up in a shop. Obviously, we got permission that we could actually do this, and obviously the chap that was driving the vehicle, I just asked him where are the family. And it was quite funny actually at the time to what happened, knowing the vehicle. Couldn't work out where the family had gone, but they'd gone in the shop to do some shopping. I think he was in there trying to look for
What did you
devil.
shout out? Rodders?
Yeah.
That's really funny. Alexander Day, what do you feel the difference in spirits between burials and cremations? That's interesting. I suppose it's both the same, is it?
More and people seem to be going for cremation
Yeah.
than burial.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think what you've got to think in the future is who's going to look after that grave when we've all passed on.
Yeah, but funerals have changed a lot over the years, haven't they? I mean, they used to, I presumably, you've been in it a long time, they were very different years ago. Were they much more religious than they are now, or?
I think some of the families are pulling away from religion and more going to a celebration of life.
Mm. Yeah.
And then
And they kind of have a lot more sort of pop songs and things now, don't they, than they would have had in the past, you know, and things like that.
and things have changed where people are having it webcast.
Yeah. Well, what got you into spiritualism, actually? I mean, I can imagine that, you know, if you're, when you first went into a spiritualist church, I mean, was that before you became an Undertaker, or during, after? Before.
Yeah.
It's a knowing, isn't it? As you're wanting to find out.
Yeah. And you found, would you recommend that to people as something that helps people?
I think religion is very personal,
Yes, right.
and I think people need to find their pathway,
Mm.
their own way,
Mm.
and I think that's the important thing to do. And a lot of things aren't quite right for, you know, for that person,
Mm.
and I think it is very personal.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can't call something to somebody. I think they've got to feel it inside.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right.
Mm.
I think the most important thing is why we're here is love. That's the most important thing. The most important thing is love while we're
The mic's
here.
not working.
Wow.
I think your light's very directional, so it's
Oh,
pointing
right,
a bit
I'm speaking.
towards you. Yeah.
Do we go to a break?
Yeah, we'll have a break. A minute ago, give us a signal when we're ready for that.
Yeah.
As you work with the deceased, do you feel and sense spirit more now than you did when you first started working as an undertaker? I mean, has it made you more? You obviously. I mean, I think when you think about death a lot, you get more of a, as a medium. You know, Jane and I, we talk about death like you do it daily in a way, when most people don't think about it at all. But do you think it's aligned you more with the idea that there's something else out there, because you're seeing the tough end of death, really, the bit, you know, the transition part, where we're talking a lot about what happens
Spiritual.
afterwards, you know.
I tend to see a lot of people that have had different views now. I see the other side where people that you get that instinct about that they believe that there is more after that person has passed away.
Mm.
And it's very, very careful how you approach that subject.
Yeah.
And there's just been one or two where I've been able to talk to those people
Yeah.
because they've got that same thought. It's like it's meant to be
Yes.
that
Yeah.
they talk to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think most people nowadays kind of believe in life after death, even though they might not be as religious as they were in the past. I think there's more people. Would you say most people believe in life after death, or have you ever done anything for an absolute atheist funeral? Because sometimes some people are complete atheists, and that might be quite difficult.
Well,
I
I
thought.
think Simon's answered that. It's people got to find their way, haven't they? It's a personal thing, and I think Simon's right.
There's certain religious that we don't. I feel that's not right, but I can't judge,
No,
No.
no,
and I wouldn't.
no. You're always in a difficult position when you're dealing with all types of different types of people. Your personal beliefs about life after death. Have you had any proof that for you that this life continues? Do you feel?
I've had a lot of proof.
Well, What would be some of the most important proofs do you think you've had?
Um,
In a dream, Simon, in a dream, perhaps loved ones reaching us sometimes.
no. When I was probably about 7, I saw a man in an army uniform, and he was waving some keys. And then when I was about 20, me and my sister was looking through some photographs, and this chap was in an army uniform, and he had a set of keys. So, yeah.
Have you ever done a spiritualist funeral, specifically for spiritualists?
Yes, I have.
And how was
yeah.
that? Was that as sort of difficult for people, or did the spiritualist services, did they sort of help people in a different way?
I think, as I said before, religion is personal, and I think it has to be the right person, whichever faith and what you believe in. If that person isn't the right celebrant or minister, whoever, it doesn't work. Now, a lot of people ask me what I like about my job most of all, and I love standing at the back at the crematorium, listening to that person's life history, and I always believe I believe it's not what he said, it's how it's said. And when you go in there and you're saying goodbye to that loved one, yes, it's a celebration of that person's life, but you need to be coming out of those chapel doors with some sort of upliftment.
Yeah, I've always found if I've attended people's funerals where I've not known them very well, you think how much gets cramped, because they have to put it all into a short little eulogy, don't they? And you think how much each person does and how little you know about the person. Even when a relative's been buried, you think, oh, I didn't know that, and I didn't know that. It must be interesting, because you must hear all sorts of people. What's any unusual ones or famous? Well, I suppose we don't want to mention people, really, but I mean, any unusual sort of stories did you hear? Or what's the most kind of unusual sort of funerals? I mean, have you done Indian people, Hindu funerals or Muslim funerals?
Yeah, we've done Hindu, we've done a Sikh, travellers we've done, and I had the opportunity some years ago to do the ex-mayoress of Eastleigh. And that was the nearest that I probably would have got to doing a state funeral. But because she was known at various places in the borough, I had to stop at certain places for people to actually be there.
So that's like a pageant, really. Yeah, amazing. And I suppose different religions, they approach it slightly differently, I suppose, do they?
Oh, yeah.
So what do they do as sort of like a Hindu one?
Hindus tend to have their own ministers, but even that's changing. You know, what you're expecting, that they want this, and this. Some of them now don't have no knowledge. Even that's changing.
Really?
Yeah.
So even the religious element in all religions is kind of being taken out of it.
Yeah. You know, when you go into a certain, obviously, the crematorium, you know, certain religion, you go in feet first. Some you carry them in head first. It's all different.
Alexandra's asking a question there. My dad was cremated in Shrewsbury, and we planted a tree. Do you help with this sort of thing?
The trees are normally planted at the crematorium. So the
They take charge of all that.
Yeah.
Okay, so you can get. I remember having one person come through. I think you had a similar one too, where the person in the spirit had their ashes made into a ring.
Oh, yeah.
wasn't there?
Well, that's another thing. Sometimes people feel close to a loved one by wearing a ring, a brooch, or a necklace.
But the rings were made out of actually compressing the
Yes.
ashes to
Yeah.
make it into a
Yeah.
diamond.
talking about that, I had a lady come in, and I was going through an arrangement, and I was asking her certain things that she could have, and she actually burst into tears. And I thought I'd actually done something wrong by upsetting her. But she then turned around and she said, "Oh, when I used another funeral director, I wasn't asked that."
Okay.
So that's gone now. You can't bring that back.
Yeah, no. But I remember, because when Jane and I do our mediumship, there's all sorts of things that are often given as proof from the spirit world to prove that the person is who they are, of course. So I've had things such as, that I remember one story of the person came to the funeral with her false teeth in her, they couldn't get the false teeth in time to be put into the body, as it were. So she had to and she got there late, so she had false teeth in her handbag. So the message from the spirit world was, you carried false teeth in your handbag to the funeral, And sometimes, because, you start to realise that all sorts of strange things happen, particularly the things that people want to put into the coffin. Because sometimes, I remember saying to people, your son was buried with a blue teddy bear, and it had a blue china face, I remember saying. So, a teddy bear with a china face is unusual, and things like that. So do you find people being buried in football gear and things
wedding
like that,
dresses.
and wedding dresses?
Wedding dresses.
Yeah,
Do you get all that
football,
type of thing? What sort of thing do people request?
Different
wedding
things.
dress. We had a painter and decorator, and he wanted to be dressed in his on his gear and have a paintbrush stuck in his pocket.
Handy.
Yeah, kind of a nice. I think those sort of things are nice tributes, aren't they? Don't you think?
Yeah.
I mean, people, that's how you remember. I know a lot of people want to be buried with a bottle of whiskey.
Shall
So
we-
you have to take those
do you
things
want-
out of you, particularly in
Do you
a,
want your son to talk a bit about David?
We've got one more question. If
All right.
Sally's saying, the
Come on.
Undertaker that did my dad's funeral, I know Sally's from Southampton because she's connected to us, said that he took, hang on, the Undertaker that did my dad's funeral said that he took this man's ashes back to his daughter's house, and he turned into the drive, and the man was stood there in the suit he was buried in, then disappeared in front of his eyes.
Mm.
Yeah, those sort of things happen, don't they? You see
Yeah.
people quite
Well,
often.
Well, Simon's experienced all different things, hasn't he, when he's telling us about the photographs on there.
Yeah.
It affects people differently, I think.
Yeah, I think death is I think
We're all gonna die,
you
Craig.
were saying, yeah, but you were saying earlier on, people are scared to talk about death,
They are.
aren't they?
They
And
are.
I think it is important that people do think about death, because we're all mortal. We know for certain.
How do you
that
want
all of
to?
us
Do you
will
want to be
die.
cremated, Craig? You've never talked about it.
I suppose we don't talk about that aspect of it. I think
Well, I
I'd
know
prefer to
what
be
I
cremated
want.
than buried, because
I'll
it's
be
cheaper.
cremated and I'll have some
Already.
glitter dust in there, and you can flush me down the toilet. It doesn't matter.
Careful, I'll take you on your word.
But you don't know what I've got planned for you yet, do you?
I mean, people have had some pretty unusual things.
Mhm.
Timothy Leary was fired up into space, wasn't he? In his dust,
What, in a
dust
rocket?
with dust and things and fireworks or something.
Yeah, because years ago when I was a nurse, they used to say that undertakers took people's jewellery off and they used to check it and things. And I think that was a load of nonsense, because they were frightened, if they were cremated and things.
We get some families that request that they want the jewellery
Oh, yeah,
left on.
Yeah, and they
Yeah.
used to say that if people had fillings and different things like that, and their ashes, they used to find fillings. Is that true?
No, fillings will actually
Melt.
melt
Oh,
down.
that's good.
Titanium won't on an implant, I expect.
I don't know.
Yeah, it must be difficult doing the actual. You do the embalming as well, I suppose. That must be a
Yeah.
very large part of your job, isn't it?
Is that something you want then, Craig?
I feel like I've drunk a bit of embalming fluid sometimes. Yeah.
But I think, very difficult doing the job you do, because you're having to deal with people's emotions, and then out of respect you're addressing that person, and then you're probably having to make up ladies and things. It's quite a hard job what you do, and I think it's a calling. I would definitely think it's a calling.
Embalming must be the biggest part of the job, surely, isn't it? That must take a long time to do.
It is, yeah. I mean, a lot of people don't like to have it done. A lot of funeral directors out there just do it for the sake of doing it. We only do it if we feel it's very, very necessary to put that person.
Okay, well, if anybody's interested locally, in finding a good quality funeral director, of course, Simon's a nice guy, as you can see, and handles everything very sensitively. His business is Waters and Sons, independent family funeral directors. They're based both in Southampton and in Portsmouth, and you can have a look in the description below. You can have a look in the description below. We put a link to his site. We're not here to advertise it, but obviously Simon's very interested in spiritualism and so forth, and it's very good of Simon to.
And can we say where the areas that Simon's in, please?
I've said Southampton and Portsmouth
Portchester.
areas. Yeah, so that covers quite a wide range of places. Now we're going to take a break in a moment, and it's Waters and Son. So we're going to have a chat with David, your son's name, isn't it? Rather than Dave. David's going to come on in a moment, and we'll have a chat with David. So if you've got any more thoughts, we're just going to put a short little break on while we just arrange our mics and things like that. And have you got any other thoughts, any other questions? Have you had anything strange happen to you at a funeral? Have you had any paranormal experiences, particularly at the funeral itself? Give us your comments on that as well. Any thoughts you have, any questions you have, and we'll take that in a part 2 coming up in a moment. Yeah.
Say, Craig, if anybody wants to contact us, any questions whatsoever, we are at the end of the phone.
Yeah.
That's nice.
On anything about those type of things, even if they haven't got somebody, because sometimes you also are just. I remember you mentioning actually when we were just talking here. Sometimes people actually arrange their funerals when they're actually got a terminal illness, don't they? The actual person comes.
A lot of people, some people, and I've had to do that a couple of times. Yeah. It's very, very hard. And it is tough. Yeah.
You're arranging your own.
You don't know what to ask them because you don't know how they're going to feel about that subject.
Yeah.
And that is very extremely difficult.
Not
only for myself, it must be hard for the immediate family.
It's a world you live in there, isn't it? I mean, today, it must be highly stressed actually to do that sometimes. 'Cause I don't suppose they have anybody for counselling funeral directors, do they? Like they would in the army or with nurses and things like that, because you're all independent people.
A lot of funeral directors, there are some particular ones where they have an organisation where they have counselling and have a group meeting. Personally, I feel that person that's bereaved doesn't always want to sit in front of a group of people. They want it individually. And it is something that we would like to set up at some point. But we have to try and get over that fear of people coming into a funeral director because it's not all doom and gloom. We've always got the kettle on and a biscuit or a piece of cake if people want to come into us and just have a chat.
It's a bit like when they come and see a medium, really, because the actual act of going to see the medium, or first time you've ever stepped into a spiritualist church, for example, is a big, big step. And then you suddenly realise everybody's nice people.
Right.
Anyway, we're going to move on now, and we're going to have a little break, and David's going to come in and have a chat with us in a moment.
Okay.
Would you like a personal psychic reading? Visit psychics.co.uk for quality international readings with Craig and his team of clairvoyants. Improve your life and find the path to a better future. You can book readings by phone or email. For a quality reading, visit psychics.co.uk now. They are the real deal.
Well, hi, and we're back again. Now we've got David with us, David Waters. I presume he's still Waters, who's also been in this unusual world of the Undertakers. You were saying earlier on, you started really young, didn't you, with this type of work?
I started when I was 14, okay, so any summer holidays from school, anything like that, I would always be with my dad.
Wow.
By his side, following his footsteps.
Yeah.
So that could be anywhere from cleaning the cars, ready to go out on funerals,
Yeah.
to looking after loved ones in our chapel of rest, to obviously cleaning, anything, going out on funerals.
That's a bit like
Our daughters were brought up with mediums in the family, and they take it as normal that your dad and mum are a medium, you know. So your dad presumably was a funeral director through most of your life, were you, or a large part of it?
All of my life, I've always seen my dad in a suit. I've never seen him. I only see him in casual clothes at weekends. You know, on the weekdays, he's mostly in a suit. And it's very much in my blood to follow his footstep and to follow on his passion in this industry all the way through till I retire.
Yeah. So it's a calling for you then, really?
Yeah, very much so. And I very much look at this industry now, the families that I'm caring for today and tomorrow and the next day and so on, they will now come back to see me and request me to look after Nan, Grandad in years to come. So we will then be the family funeral director. We're not big, we're not huge, we are just small, family to a family. And that is why on everything, our signage, on our letterheads, everything, our slogan, as it were, is our family caring for your family.
Okay, yeah.
What's nice about you, you're quite young and you must have experience of dealing with young people that have passed.
I have,
Babies,
yeah.
teenagers. Would you like to tell some stories without mentioning names?
So we do a lot of baby funerals. Obviously we do look after Princess Anne Hospital in Southampton. So I know a lot of people will know Princess Anne Hospital that's on here. So we do care for a lot of mums and dads. And I think you can't see them as a couple because they are singular people, okay? And the mum will grieve in her own way and the dad will grieve in his own way. And I think it's very hard when you get people that will say it was just a baby, because it's not a baby, it was their future, it was their family that they've lost. So that's very hard, and I personally struggle with doing funerals for people my own age, okay, and I lose a lot of sleep over that. So if we have someone in and that we're caring for that's my sort of age, I do struggle with it, and I do want to take even extra care of them, more so. We have just done a young girl recently who sadly took her own life, and she was only 22. And I made sure she had the best send-off she could possibly have. So I made sure she had horses. The horses were there.
that the mum and the dad could have their own private time, because I think it's very important, because a funeral can get overcrowded and you get lost in the moment. So I make sure that the mum and the dad have their own private time before they go to a crematorium, before they go to home, wherever they're going, they have their private time with their daughter and have their own time to say their last goodbyes.
It's a bit like a
It's
spirit.
a spiritual job you're doing, really, isn't it? Yeah. How would you describe the spiritual side of it, really? I mean, do you kind of connect with the people in on a sort of emotional level, psychological, or even a spiritual type of level?
With this job, you have to be a very good reader, an interpreter. You have to read people and what they want. Now, some people, when they come to you, they don't know what it is they're looking for, and you have to guide them. And as you're guiding them, you get a better feel for what that person wants and how they want their loved one to be looked after and what funeral service they would like. And I think it's very important that every member of the family gets involved in the funeral, and it's not just the immediate family. So we do little things. So like, say someone was a footballer, we'd get footballs printed so that every member of the family can write their own message. They can either have that put in the coffin with their loved one, or we tie it to like the handles of the coffin. Okay. Now, I think within the funeral industry, a lot of people think of it as a coffin. They like that, you know, that's the first thing everyone thinks about, a coffin. And sometimes people have a sort of a fear of the coffin, and I like to try and move the fear away from the coffin in order, obviously writing cards out, tying it to the handle, and also we've just started having engravings on coffins, which means we can make that coffin personal to that person. So as Dad was speaking before about the painter who wanted his paintbrush with him, you know, we could have a paint pot engraved on the head end of the coffin. Now, usually the head end of the coffin is what you see most at a funeral service. It makes it more personal to the immediate family and everyone that's there, and it's not just a coffin.
So you've got a very calming energy.
David,
You know, I can imagine you help people a great deal with the way you speak to people.
and tell me, David, how do you switch off? What do you do to have non-attachments to what you see, perhaps tragic things that you have to deal with?
I think most of the time you can't switch off. This is the type of job, it comes home with you. It's not a 9-to-5 job, and you're constantly working for not only your family, but everyone else's family. You know, the phone itself, you have to answer all the time. And for me, switching off.
Hobbies? No hobbies?
You have a hobby, I do like to sort of go out and socialise with friends and have time away, but I think putting in the effort and the time with my families now, they will forever be thankful to me. And it's now, I mean, I'm only now 18, it's like going to the shop and people coming up to me and going, you looked after Mum, you've done an excellent job. And now that's at 18, so obviously I left school at 16.
But you're quite matured at 18, aren't you? You're sort of quite matured, and you come across a very caring person like your father, and you go that one much step further than any other funeral directors I've met.
People are asking about, have you had any unusual music requests at all? People ask us
I've had loads of unusual ones. Okay, I've had sort of like Baby Shark. That's been requested, and that's even been for someone that's like 60, 70 old. So that was because you're bringing in the grandchildren to the funeral service. You're not making it sad. You're making it a part of the family, and it's a goodbye. You know, you've had Honey Foals and Horses going in.
Really?
You've had all different things. You know, it's not all just about music as well. It's making it the going in and coming out of a church or
Yeah.
or a crematorium special.
Yeah.
For instance, I remember a funeral we did, and Dad was looking after the family, and I was a pallbearer, and he said, "Whatever you do when you're carrying in, don't laugh." And all of our staff,
Make
we
you
all
wanna
looked
laugh.
at each other, and we looked and we thought, "What does he mean? Don't
Yeah.
laugh." So we got halfway in. Dad asked everyone to stand and look. He pressed a button, and all these fart sounds were going off. And of course, you don't think at a funeral service, or most wouldn't, to laugh, but that was his characteristic.
Yeah,
that
yeah.
was that
Yeah.
man's
That's
characteristic.
funny.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
need to make it about the
That's
person.
really funny.
You don't need to impress everyone else at the funeral service.
We've got questions now.
That's great.
Yeah.
I-
Peter T says, have you performed a burial with a material felt coffin in private woods?
They
I
like
was
to do
talking
these-
like you've got like a willow coffins, and then you have these standard coffins. Have you done a coffin in felt?
Not felt.
No.
No, not
What-
felt.
Anything unusual then?
I think the most unusual burial coffin I've done is a glitter
Oh,
coffin.
right.
Oh, good.
And it's not something every day you'll see.
Sort of Elvis's type of glitter, sort of.
Yeah, but it was a total nightmare
Yeah, yeah.
because all the family, it made the family over the moon.
Yeah.
But of course, when it's the aftermath of carrying the coffin,
Oh, you're covered in glitter.
you're carried in glitter.
God.
So of course you then again bring in the kids and the children side of it, because they then say, "Oh look, Mum, he's not just dressed in a black suit. He's got pink glitter all over him."
Oh.
So it's making it unique and special,
Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah,
and the
yeah.
goodbye
Nice.
special.
Yeah.
It's really nice.
And,
the spiritual side of things. You've got a lot of healing energy. I can feel it, too. But I can imagine you're quite, like your dad, quite open to the idea of the next life and the spirit world. Have you ever experienced anything that you could say was like, couldn't be explained or...
I remember this one time, and this is sort of touching on the base about the photo. We placed the photo on the side, and above it was what we like hygienic rolls, so sort of towels.
mhm.
And we were talking about this young gentleman's service and how it was going to go, and all of a sudden this towel dropped.
Mm.
And it was like an indication we needed to be quiet, shut up about it,
Yeah.
and just get it done.
Yeah.
And it was weird because he was there,
Mhm.
and you felt that he was there.
Yeah, yeah. 'Cause I mean, if you're dressing someone,
or you're doing the embalming and the rest of it, you must sort of connect and wonder, what was this person like, and who is this person? And you must get almost like the feeling, do you get the feeling you're in presence of a body or with a person sometimes, you know what I mean?
Sometimes when you're looking after someone and you're dressing them, you obviously get to see their body art, okay, which is a fascinating
Yeah.
thing,
right? Yeah, yeah.
okay, and many won't think of this.
Yeah.
Now, you'll have like tattoos that won't have a meaning, and you can tell they don't have
Yeah.
a significant meaning, they're just a laugh or a joke
Yeah,
sort of
yeah.
one. And then you'll get ones that have a meaning to them. And then when you go back and speak to the family later on and you're building a conversation with them and you say, "Oh, Dad has a certain particular tattoo,"
Mhm.
you're then building on about his characteristic and his character
Yeah, yeah.
on this earth. And it's quite interesting the stories that come about from just talking about someone's tattoo.
Yeah, I can imagine.
There is like I wouldn't call it a famous tattoo, but there is a tattoo that people get when they obviously go to prison.
Okay.
And you build a characteristic of people, and when
You know
family
their
sell,
secret lives.
you have a story of them
Yeah.
that the family may not want everyone to know,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
you're having that personal connection with that family. They're willing to let you know.
Uh-huh.
It's the same as when someone's picking an outfit for their loved one to be dressed in. And of course, they're shifting through all the closets and the wardrobes and
Yeah.
whatever, and you're finding personal belongings. It's very interesting when you talk to people and they bring up in the conversation that what they found in certain people's places,
Yeah.
and they wouldn't expect as their own family it was there.
Yeah.
So that's quite
So you get some pretty
interesting.
unusual side of things. Well, I'll just say to people,
We're coming up to the last questions now, guys. So if you've got any final questions you want to ask about, this unusual world of the Undertaker, and now's your time. You know, we don't often get to chat with an Undertaker, fortunately, in life most of the time. But you get anything you want to ask about those. So, and remember, if you're following the channel, don't forget to subscribe. You can hit that bell button in the corner of the screen. And if you really like what we're doing, we have our patrons. We've had a few of the patrons coming on today. I know because we had a little symbol on there to let us know that they were patrons. And you can follow Jane on Instagram. You can also go to our new website at psychics.co.uk, where you can read all the books and things that we've written, and all the books about Jane and I's stories of the afterlife. And of course, in the description below, we also have the link if you do need the services of somebody who is a nice people that you can talk to. You can call them anytime just to have a chat, even if you've got something planned for years to come. You can always go to Waters & Son Independent Family Funeral Directors, and the link is in the description below. And thank you, guys, for coming on tonight. So last questions, please. And we can give you some...
This one now, Kathy.
Do you think spirit is around with watching how death is dealt with by the Undertaker till they are cremated or buried? Hang on. Do you think spirit is... Okay, do you think the spirit's watching over their bodies when you're sort of doing all the preparations? I think that's what she means. And right up to the time of burial. Do you ever get the sense that that person's spirit is kind of with you?
I don't think the spirit Still got a load of people on.
Sorry?
Still got a lot of people
Yeah,
on.
there's lots and lots of people following. We get a hell of a lot of people.
And we are
I
live.
think we are back. We're back. We're back from the dead.
Let's say that. We're talking from the other side now.
Hopefully you can see us now,
Guys, we've had so many weird... Sorry? You can't hear me. Can you hear me now?
I wonder if ours works.
Can you hear me? Speaking, testing. Shall I turn my mic off and on? Testing. Is yours working, Jay?
1, 2, 3, 4.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah. No?
No? No, it's been really remarkable, really. I mean, everything. We're live now.
The motorbikes.
Can you hear us? Yeah, okay. Hi, guys. Sorry, we had the most unusual evening tonight. We've had everything going haywire here, haven't we?
The screen.
The screen went all funny.
Yeah.
Sound's gone all funny. Cameras have been going
Lights.
haywire. And then we had the computer crash on us. We never had that before.
No.
I mean, no reason for the computer
No.
to crash. And so we're on our last questions. No, it's not the mics. It's a poltergeist. Joking around, and that's what we've been wondering. Yeah.
Because we
Have you
wondered.
ever had anything like that? You've had that thing moved, didn't you? But any poltergeist activity?
Like at the crematorium, there's obviously the curtain that will come round if the
Yeah.
family request it. That's stopped halfway coming round.
Oh.
And you just think, oh, hang on a minute, somebody doesn't want to go.
Yeah.
You know, somebody doesn't want to say goodbye in the room. You've obviously had the mics at the crematorium not work. You've had the webcast, so the cameras there not work.
Technical stuff. I mean,
All the
Zoom,
technical, yeah.
So I think you guys have got an energy.
that you bring with you.
Yeah,
That thing is
it
not,
can
does
happen.
not lend itself
And
to...
it happens to families that you wish it wouldn't happen to.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, 'cause it's so important it goes right.
And it's terrible.
Yeah. Yeah.
But luckily all the services are recorded,
Yeah,
so
that's
that's the
good.
main thing.
No, Dean says spirit haunting. I think it's Dave who's got psychic kinesis here, you know, Craig.
Definitely me.
Yeah, definitely him. He's to
Yeah.
blame.
Yeah, so the computer gone. Everything.
We're not having you on the show again. Do you believe in Irish wakes celebrating death instead of mourning? That's an interesting thought.
I think death should be celebrated and not mourned, because you're coming to the end of that life that you've lived, and life is very much what you make it. So you can make it the best life ever and go out and live to your full, or you can just do nothing. And I think some people really do have remarkable stories that I think it is an honour to be a part of hearing them. And they're not stories that you would hear in books,
No.
but if they wrote a book, I reckon it would be a top seller.
Yeah, very personal stories. You hear the personal side, don't you? The side where the family's talking about, with a lot of love, about that person. Yeah. My mum's funeral at my mum's funeral last week, right, I'm sure she was messing with the sounds in the church. Yeah. Perhaps she was here tonight, Jenny. I don't know. Thank you, everyone. We're on our way out now, guys.
You're on
Put
your
that-
way
I
out.
put that slightly wrong.
Rephrase that, Craig. Rephrase it.
Yeah, see, Freudian slips and things like that must be so difficult to handle, actually. We're leaving you now. We're going to see you soon, so we're going to be saying our goodbyes. All of those sound wrong.
Yeah.
Thank you, Vera. Thank you for joining us. See you next week. Have a lovely evening.
Alexander, these guys, especially the younger guy, have spirit energies in the aura. He may want to cleanse himself with showers that he doesn't need to. He's a clean living boy.
That's for clearing the aura
Yeah.
they're talking about.
He's clean
Yeah.
living.
Yeah. Hello again. You just got back on again, obviously, after we lost you
Yeah.
guys. I think there's a spirit around that wants to mess with the interview. I think we had something today definitely going on here. Yeah, this is what happens when we go live.
Strange night tonight. Problems with sound, pictures, and now connections.
Yeah, and the computer
Yeah.
and things
Never
before
had
we
that.
went on as well. It just never had it
Annie,
like this before.
Thank you and much gratitude and respect from South Africa.
Oh, thank you, Annie. That's nice of you to join us.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you. I
Alexander.
hope you found it interesting tonight, guys. A different tact, but I think it's an insight into a world
Yeah.
you wouldn't normally know about.
Agility Bit says, thank you for bringing 2 interesting guests this week. Have a lovely rest of the week. Yeah, thank you, Simon and David. Kathy?
Thank you, great night, says Kathy Murray. Thank you for joining us. And I think we're coming to the end now. So anything, you want to find any more about us and about the people that have been on the guest tonight, you can always look in the description below. Very well. A very good evening. Blessings to all. I think we've got a few last goodbyes coming up. Yeah. So long, till next time,
Dean.
says Dean. And that's
And
it.
that's
So I
it.
think so thank you all, everybody, for joining us. We'll see you all again. We're going to say bye for now.
Ciao.